First and foremost, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in today. Thanks for taking the next 45 minutes out of your very busy schedules to join us here for our first Accelerate Series webinar of 2025. Now, many of you have joined me over the last several years as I've continued to host this series. So this is a series I've been hosting for almost the last 3, if not almost 4 years that I've been here with Asset Map. And starting off the year, we felt that it would be great for us to kickstart 2025 with mastering Asset Map stencils. So for those of you that have been using the platform for quite some time, my hope is that you are already leveraging stencils actively, but there's always ways that you can use stencils in addition. One person did chat in that they said that there was an echo of some kind. Can everybody else hear me okay? Please feel free to use the chat. I've checked my audio and everything, and it appears that everything is working fine. So let me know in the chat. Everyone can hear me okay? Can see my screen? Sounds okay. Okay, great. All right, I apologize if one or two of you have an echo. I'm not sure if it maybe has to do with your device, but I sincerely apologize. That being said, let's go ahead and continue on. So our webinar today will be focusing on Asset Map stencils. Before we dive in, let me start by introducing myself for those I've not had the pleasure of meeting. My name is LiaJean McHenry. I recently just got promoted to our Senior Manager of Customer Success. So previously I was our training manager. Still going to be taking part in these trainings, and we'll continue to do a lot of the training for all of you here at Asset Map moving forward. Just going to be also doing other things like account management. So very excited to continue my journey here. I've been at Asset Map for almost 5 years, and I really believe in the product and tool that we have, and I really want this to be one of the best investments that you've ever made. Part of how you can continue to leverage Asset Map is tuning into trainings like these that we're going to be offering every month. So if you're new, we offer our Accelerate Series webinar once a month. Usually it's the 3rd or 4th Thursday of every month. Just depends on if we have, 5 or 6 Thursdays in a month. This is going to be our agenda together today. This is what we'll be covering. Again, everything to do with stencils. So we're going to start by defining what a stencil is, how to use it, where to find it. Then we're going to show you the stencil library. So we actually have a library of stencils that you can readily pick and choose from, which is fantastic. We'll show you how you can use stencils in full versus how you could potentially use them in part. And then I'll take you through how to build your own custom stencil. Now, all throughout your journey here with us, there's not going to be a lack of support or resources available to you. So if you have questions after today's training, if you want to do a one-on-one with someone from our support team, these are all things that we can do with you. You'll just need to reach out through your approved channels, and we'll show you where to find that information later today. Now, if you have questions throughout today's training, please feel free to use the chat feature in Zoom. No one else will see your questions except for me. And if it's applicable to the group, we'll make sure that we get it answered. If it's one-off or very specific, user case for yourself, I'll ask that we just try to take that offline just out of respect for the group and everyone's time. Now, is this being recorded? Yes, it is. When can you expect the recording? For those of you that are not enterprise clients, I will send out the recording here within probably the next hour after today's session concludes. If you are an enterprise client, that just means that I might have to go through an approval process to get the replay approved. Usually that takes anywhere from 2 to 5 business days. And once that gets available, then you can reach out and we can send it over to you. No problem. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So where I'd like to start today is number one, what are stencils and where can you even find them? Well, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go ahead and pivot into a household here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move into this particular household. So I'm going to type in the household's name that I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going to open up the household and I'm going to come right to this household's map. So here you can see that I have a household. Oops, let me just change this person's name. Well, it looks like I imported them from Redtail, so that's why. Regardless, you get the gist. This is an asset map that I built. It's a sample client, fake data, but it'll be perfect for what we're going to be using in terms of content today. So the first thing I want to address is that the goal is always to get us to building a completed asset map. Okay, so if I'm building out this household here and I've added what I know about them, if this is everything I know, I might very clearly understand that we might be missing some information. The natural next step will always be to apply a stencil. Now you might be wondering, well, what even is a stencil? Well, a stencil is comprised of placeholders that represent all different kinds of financial instruments that you can overlay onto a household's map to help build their map out a little bit more. Now you might be saying, well, where do they even live? Well, number one, you need to be in a household on their digital map. From here, you can use your plus mark, which is your actions menu on the upper left-hand side, and you can find stencils here. Or for those of you that prefer, on the digital map, anywhere where there's white space, you can right-click your mouse, and don't forget you've got that quick actions menu. I'm going to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I tend to use the quick actions menu the most. I simply think it's the easiest way to open up the menu. And really, this is the same menu you see on the upper left. It's just kind of a condensed version. So something to consider. In today's example, I'm going to click Stencils and click Apply. Now, for each of you, when you go to apply a stencil to a household, you're going to have two tabs, My Stencils and Public Library. My Stencils will be blank for all of you unless you create your own custom stencils, okay? If you don't create any of your own custom stencils, you're not going to have anything under mine. You will, however, have the public library. Now, we'll cover the public library a little bit more in depth in just a couple moments. But as you can see, you're going to have 20 plus custom built stencils, okay? You can comb through this list and you can take a look at that in your own time. Most of our stencils are based off of time of life, occupation, generation, niche markets that financial professionals might be working with. Now, for those of you that have been with AssetMap some time long ago, we used to only give you like 4 or 6 stencils, okay? That was it. We gave you some templates to start with, and that was it. Then we started working with advisors one-on-one, helping them create custom stencils. And then we started realizing like a lot of advisors are just wanting to recreate the exact same things that other people are doing, right? People that work with Gen X, people that work with a lot of businesses that need a lot of financial specific to business, a lot of people that work with military, whether they're pre-retiree or retiree, people that work with educators and or physicians or philanthropists, for example. So long ago, we said, okay, well, we'll just start storing these additional custom built stencils that we've built alongside other financial professionals. And if other people ask for them, we'll make them available. So you used to actually have to fill out a form to get any additional stencils. Then we decided, let's just cut this out and let's just create a public library where everything is available for everyone at that time. Now, if for any reason when you go into your public library and your list looks slightly adjusted than from mine, there might be like 1 or 2 you don't see, it just means you're an enterprise client, and that may likely means that either that stencil wasn't approved by your organization or we need to submit it to get it approved, okay? The gist is everybody, regardless if you're an enterprise or not, it's gonna have like 20 plus stencils to pick and choose from, so I promise you're gonna be fine. The cool thing about these stencils is to the left of them, you can preview. When you preview them, it'll open it up and it'll say, hey, this is what makes up this stencil. So as you can see, this is the traditional Fact Finder stencil, covers a lot of those high level basics that someone might have 1 or 2 accounts in those different areas. So you look through this list, you're like, you know what, this stencil looks good, you click apply. Notice in a matter of seconds that all of those placeholders get overlaid onto this household's map. However, all those placeholders are outlined in light gray. Light gray outlines mean this is a stencil placeholder, meaning I put this here simply to ask the question, do you have any of these accounts? If you do, we'll save them. If you don't, we'll delete them. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as a best practice, when you apply a stencil, I typically recommend do it prior to your client and or prospect coming in for that meeting. Why? Well, especially if you're using our public library stencils, and even if you decide to build some of your own custom, stencils tend to be pretty robust. And placeholders don't work for everybody. And so you might need to remove certain placeholders that A, you're not prepared to talk about, B, you already have information for, or C, maybe it's not applicable because you know these people a little bit, okay? So what I always recommend is think of the household that you want to apply the stencil, go to it, apply the stencil, just like I did here. But before you think about presenting this to these individuals, you need to remove the pieces that you'd like to remove. The best way and most efficient way to do this is to use your search and select tool on the upper right-hand side. When you enable your search and select tool, you can select physical instruments. So those are tiles outlined in color, meaning you either added that, you either imported that from an integration, or you onboarded this household through that Discovery Fact Finder and they added it, okay? Boxes outlined in color are permanent pieces of the map unless you click on them and then tell the platform what to do with it. Now you can also select stencil placeholders in the search and select tool. Based on your selection, you can tell the platform what to do. Clear will deselect anything selected. Delete would delete anything selected. Clone would create a carbon copy of anything selected. Hide and unhide is great for presentation purposes. Maybe there's a couple tiles on the map that, we need there sometimes, but we don't always want there. Things like a placeholder for a future inheritance. I might want that instrument on the map here and there, but not all the time. Hide and unhide can be excellent for that. You also have the search bar here. The search option in your search and select tool will actually go off of naming criteria. So for example, if I was to type in the word group, for example, so if I come in here, it'll help if I could spell today, type in the word group, it'll auto select anything with the word group in the name and or the location. For example, I clear this out, I type in the word IRA. Any box that has the word IRA in it, it'll auto select. And then you can tell the platform what to do with it. I'm not going to use this, so I'm going to exit out of it. Now, in today's example, the easiest way to remove pieces of a stencil is to use the search and select tool. So for example, I don't need a placeholder for employment. They told me their employment. I know that these people don't have pensions because they told me on the phone. Okay, these people are in their early 40s. We're not going to talk about long-term care day one, probably not even individual disability, even group disability. We can talk about that later. Maybe I just want to know, what do you have from an insurance perspective? Do I need all these different types of insurance? Maybe you say, we'll just put one placeholder for insurance and I can add anything extra later, or I can leave them all. It's up to you. Down below, I might say these people, I know that they own the one home. They have these two properties. They don't have mortgages. They've been very diligent about making good investments. So I know they don't have any debt because I already had a conversation with them about it. I don't think these people have crypto or NFT, so I'm going to take that off of a placeholder. If they do, we'll talk about it in conversation. If I click delete, you'll notice that I can remove those 16 stencil placeholders, but everything else will stay on the map. That's what's great about stencils. Most of our stencils are robust, but you can overlay it really quickly and remove the pieces that you don't want there, and then leave the things intentionally that you do. Now, the intention of how you could use this with a prospect and or client could go as follows. Diana, Ben, thank you so much for coming in today. As you can see on the screen, I'm starting to build a map of where you and your family are today. We here at Main Street Financial have invested in a technology that allows us to build an accurate picture of your financial map. This is the foundation of our relationship moving forward. This is a new level of service we're providing everyone that we work with. I thought of you. I wanted you to be one of the first people that I built this for. Now, you'll notice on the map, the two of you are featured in the middle, and the most important people in your life are featured at the top. How your map is structured is you'll have your insurance and protection assets up top above the two of you. Think of it like an umbrella. Down below, you're going to have your jointly owned assets. Now, on each of your independent sides, the top section will be your cash flow income sources, followed by your individual assets. You might notice that there are some tiles outlined in color. This is based off the information that I already know about you. Or if this is a prospect, I could say, this is the information that you provided to me. But you might also notice that there's several boxes outlined in light gray. Listen, I would be remiss if we don't make this 100% accurate. So I took the liberty of putting a few placeholders here, not to say that you have to have these things, and if you don't, we won't work with you, or that if you do have them, we're going to manage it, or that if you don't have them, you're not going to be successful. No, let's just get this map accurate. Your peers that fall in your income and age bracket sometimes have one or two accounts in these different areas. And so we just like to ask the question in case we're missing anything. And so I could say, Ben, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you. On the upper right, is this salary still correct? It is? Okay, perfect. What about any additional income? Oh, you usually get a bonus. Okay, and the bonus is usually how much? Okay, so no matter what, you're usually getting a $10,000 bonus, but it could be anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000. Okay, good to know. I'll just go ahead and add that in here. And I could come in here and I could call this Ben's bonus, okay? And I could put it in for a value. Maybe to be conservative, I'll just put the 10. Now you do have to mark a start date, okay? We don't really care about the past, so usually I'll just mark as of today. Maybe I don't know when this guy's gonna retire, but I could put a default age to start, and look, I can click update. Now that's gonna save as a permanent piece of this map moving forward. Now I might say to Diana and Ben, and again, I'm sorry, her name is not looking correct here. I'll fix that later. But I'll say to Diana and Ben, listen, what about Social Security statements? You know, you can go online and you can grab your statement and we could at least take that into consideration. And they'll say, listen, LiaJean, I'll send you the statement later. Great. I can click into these two stencil placeholders and simply just click update. And look what happens. I saved the pieces permanently and we can add the details later. So the great thing about stencils is that stencils were really designed to help us continue to fact find and fill in gaps. But stencils can also be a way for us to put very intentional placeholders for products and things that we want to have a conversation about. Okay, so that's the key thing that I want you all to be aware of today. Now, let's say for the sake of time, because we're going to do quite a few examples today for food for thought, right? Let's say that Diana says, you know what, I also have a traditional 401k, or rather, this is my traditional 401k. I have a separate IRA. Okay, well, I could click in here and I could adjust this language because again, she entered this. So I could come in here and I could call this traditional 401k. So I can take an existing tile and I can update it. And then she tells me that she's got an IRA. Okay, so we'll come in here and I'll say, this is your IRA. She says that she thinks it's got about $60,000 in it. She needs to check on the institution. She can't remember. Let's just say, for example. By the way, for naming criteria, I do like to come in here and I usually like to put the person's name, like Diana's IRA. The reason for that is how you name a tile is how it flows through to other reports. It's also how it flows through to target maps and things. And sometimes when you flip to a household in like a listed view, like financials, if things are named really appropriately, it just becomes a lot easier to know whose accounts are whose underneath the reference name. Versus if you just name everything 401k and there's like two 401ks and an old 401k, how are you going to know which one's which? Maybe you'll know based off the value, but if I could encourage all of you to really get in the good habit of naming things appropriately, I do think that's helpful. Like I could even click in here and add Diana's name in here. I usually like to put whose is it, what is it, and where is it located. And I'll get rid of this language too. Okay. Now let's just say for the sake of time that Ben says he has an annuity, he's going to send me the statement later. Great. Diana also says she has an individual checking account. Great. We'll save that. She's going to send me the statement later. They have a joint investment account. Okay, great. We're going to get the statement later. You can just click into the stencil tiles and save what's applicable, add the details later. Now, to remove the remaining pieces of a stencil in one fell swoop, the easiest way to do that is to simply right-click your mouse, come to Stencils, and click Clear. Clearing a stencil will take any remaining placeholder and remove it in one fell swoop. However, anything saved from that stencil will now be a permanent piece of this map moving forward. Okay? So now that we've defined what a stencil is, right? Stencils are comprised of placeholders that represent all different kinds of instruments that you can overlay to a map. It's ideal to help you continue a fact-finding conversation. Okay, fill in gaps, continue to fact find, also introduce products and things you don't want to forget to talk about. Let's go over a couple examples. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and flip to another household here. I'm going to flip to the Burns household and I'm going to open up this household. Okay. Here's a perfect example of I have a primary client on the left and then their spouse on the right. Now, let's just say that this is a relatively new client. I'm not really managing too much for this person. I'm still missing a little bit of information for her, but I know nothing about her husband, Brian, okay, because they just got married. And he's kind of new to the equation, but he's going to be coming in for a meeting. This is how I could apply a stencil in part if I wanted to. If you right-click your mouse and go to Stencil and click Apply, again, my stencils will be blank for all of you unless you create your own, but you'll have the public library. If you come in here You can pick a stencil. In my opinion, the best stencil that allows you to apply and part very specifically is the building block stencil. So that tends to be my favorite. So what I'll do is if you're taking notes, I would write down building blocks. That tends to be the best one that you can apply and part. But some of these other ones you can also use. So let's say that these people fall into the Gen X category. You can click on that and it'll ask you, do you want to apply it in full? It'll default to yes, but to apply in part, you're going to pick no. When you pick no, you're going to say, okay, I want to apply the placeholders of this stencil for a working spouse to be applied to this spouse in this equation. What's very important for you all to know about stencils is the only way they work is they're tied to roll types, okay? So when a stencil gets built, if the primary client in the stencil has 20 different placeholders, those 20 different placeholders can only be applied to another household to the primary because it matches the roll type. So in this case, because Judy is the primary and Brian is the spouse, I know that in this stencil, I want to take the spouse's placeholders and I want to apply them to the spouse in this household. If I click apply, you're going to notice in a matter of seconds that it'll take those placeholders, but it's only going to put it on Brian's side. Okay. So that would be one way to apply and part. Another way is maybe I want to build out Judy's side just a little bit more. This is also where I could right click my mouse, come to stencil, click apply. This is where I could come to the public library. And this, when you're trying to be very specific, option number 2, building blocks, is going to be your best friend. This is where you're going to come and you can pick the building block stencil and you'll say, no, I don't want to apply the whole thing. And you could say, you know what, I just want to apply conversation basics to Judy's side. Or you could be very specific with types of placeholders. Okay, this is by type, and you can only pick one of these at a time. So let's say I want to do the conversation basics, which I personally like. I think it does a good job of covering the basics. You click apply, and then what it's going to do is it's going to take those placeholders and only put them on Judy's side. So you can be very intentional with how you play around with stencils. And even though I just applied both of these 2 separate stencils in part to this one map, I can still leverage the search and select tool the same way. On the upper right, I can remove things I don't need info for, like I already know her job, okay? I also already know about her retirement account, but maybe there's other retirement savings, so maybe I'll leave that, okay? So I could go ahead and still use the search and select tool if I want to. So now that we've talked about what stencils are, where they live, how you can apply them in full, and then clean them up with the search and select tool, just gave you a couple examples here on how you can apply them in part. I also want to bring this full circle for just a moment, and I'm going to take you to another household that I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to this household, and I'm going to open up their map. Okay? We're going to reapply these, so I'm going to delete them for the sake of the example today. So as you can see, Eddie and Jackie Eddie's in his mid-50s, Jackie's in her early 50s. You know, I like to start maybe having that long-term care conversation around like 55 to 70. Everybody's a little bit different. What you could do is I could say, okay, listen, I have this map bill. I mean, I have all of their information. I know everything that they own and what they have, but maybe in preparation for an annual review I have coming up with them, it's time to talk about long-term care. This is where you could also apply stencils very specifically in part. If you right-click your mouse, you can come over stencil, click apply. You could come to the public library. Again, when you're going to be very specific, which one do we want to use? Building blocks. So I can say I want to use the building block stencil. I don't want to apply the whole thing. In the selection drop-down for topics, I'm going to pick long-term care and I'll apply it to Eddie first. You can only do it one person at a time, but look, it put one very intentional placeholder for long-term care for Eddie. If I want to do one on her side, you follow the same steps. Right-click your mouse, stencil, apply, public library, come here to the building block stencil, say no, I don't want to apply the whole thing. In fact, I only want to apply long-term care policies, but this time to Jackie's side, who's the spouse. Click apply, and just like that, I very intentionally added those 2 placeholders here as well. Okay, So you can use stencils as you prepare for annual reviews, put very intentional placeholders for products and solutions that maybe you don't want to forget to talk about. So even though stencils were designed to help us fact find and fill in gaps, they're also a way for us to leverage and open doors for planning conversations as well. Okay, so it's just something to consider. Another example of what I'd like to show to you all today is that even though here at Asset Map, we tend to preach that the best method of getting leads and prospects added into Asset Map is leveraging your discovery interview, right? It's a blank digital fact finder. You send it off to a lead, you send it off to a prospect, they fill out the questions, they click all done. It then adds a new household into Asset Map. Now, let's say that I onboarded this prospect through the Discovery Fact Finder. Well, it comes through, I get notified, I can open up that household, I can go right to their map. And again, this is a perfect example of whether we're manually entering households, we're importing households through the use of integrations. For leads and prospects, if we're onboarding them with Discovery first, when you then get to their map, and it looks like information's missing, the natural next step will be for you to go and apply a stencil. Okay, you can apply that stencil prior to them coming in, and then that way when they come in, you're going to make the best use of your time and you can continue to fact find, right? I think that's one of the biggest efficiency tips that all advisors are looking for, are ways to save time, not cut corners, but save time so that we can service more people, right? Have more meaningful conversations. And I think that stencils are a fantastic way to streamline getting data added into the application. Again, if you applied one and you're like, I don't really like this one, you can just go ahead and click clear, and then you can go through the steps again of applying a different one if you so choose. But here's the thing. Every now and then we're going to have a warm lead or a prospect that's coming in for a meeting and we realize, you know what, they didn't fill out the Discovery Fact Finder, or we forgot to send them the link. And if you really start to get ingrained in using Asset Map as part of your process, which is what you should be doing, you're going to start becoming very reliant and comfortable putting an Asset Map in front of those prospects and your current clients to have those meaningful conversations. Okay. And so at the end of the day, you might be saying, well, wait a second, I have someone coming in an hour and I don't even have a shell of a map built for them. Well, guess what? You can use stencils from the very beginning. Watch, you can click add household here. You can click manual entry. Let's say that this is a prospect. Okay, we're going to say that the prospect's house, we're going to call this the Bird household. Okay, the primary prospect that's coming in, his name is Marty Bird. So we're going to go ahead and add him in. He's 53 years old, male, add member. His wife is coming in with him. I believe he said her name is Wendy. Okay, maybe I have to look up my email. I confirm. I'm like, great. Okay, she's 52, gender, female, role, spouse. Okay, roles are very important for stencils. So Marty's a primary role. She's a spouse. Okay, add member. Now, I think they said they had 2 kids, Charlotte, Jonah, and maybe a business. They seem stressed about it all the time. We can add those details later. All I have to do is scroll down and click add household. And look, in less than what, 30 seconds, I very quickly manually added this prospect into the application. But guess what? I don't know anything about them and they're coming in 30 minutes. Well, guess what? You just right click your mouse, come to Stencil, click apply, come to the public library. Someone actually chatted in and they said, tell me again how to preview a stencil. So we'll cover that now. When you come into either My Stencils, so if you've created any custom ones, you can preview any of the ones you've custom created. It's just the little picture icon to the left. Same thing in the public library. Come next to any of these and you can look at the picture icon on the upper right. Okay. Now let's say that these people fall into this category. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And by the way, if we wanted to preview it, you just click on it and it opens it up and it says, hey, this is what makes up this particular stencil. Are you happy with it? You are? Okay, apply the whole thing. Yes, click apply. And look, in a matter of seconds, in what, 1 minute, simply because I'm narrating this, I manually added the prospect, immediately overlaid a stencil, and hey, now they're coming in 30 minutes, no problem. We'll put this map in front of them. Don't forget that as long as a stencil is applied to a digital map as well, it will also be on the printout. So when you come to the report section, if you wanted to build a deliverable, you could come in here and you could make a little packet. We could say, I want everyone to have a cover page, everyone to have the Asset Map report. We don't have target maps created yet, so we'll go ahead and turn that off. And because this is a prospect and we don't know anything, maybe it's just those 3 reports: cover page, asset map report, and the disclosure. Click generate. I'm going to show you what this looks like. So even if you had a household where you had a lot of information and you overlaid a stencil in part, if you went to the reports area and you went to produce an asset map report, that visual map on a printout, the placeholders are going to be on the printout. Okay, so look at this here. You can see that. Okay, and you're going to have the ability to see, okay, this is the cover page, and then this is going to be whatever the map looks like. In this case, it's all stencil placeholders, but imagine how valuable that could be if I made a copy for each person that's coming in. Not only would I have this digitally up on the screen, but I'd have paper copies in front of Marty and Wendy. Everybody gets a pen. We all get to scribble and take notes and be a part of a collaborative conversation. And guess what? They didn't bring all the statements with them. That's okay. We can put placeholders. Wendy says, I think I have a Roth IRA with $30,000 in it. Okay. Put $30,000 and click save. Okay. The map does not have to be perfect in the very beginning, especially if there's things you don't know about your current clients, and especially if you're working with prospects. Don't get stuck on the map having to be perfect. Get stuck on just uncovering everything that they have, getting this map, built to the best of your ability, and then we can improve and update the values later on. Now, in a perfect world, they'll know what their account values are, and they'll be able to give you some kind of, close to what they actually are trending in those accounts, and then they can send you statements and things like that later on. Now that we've talked about what stencils are, where they live, and how to use them, we also talked about how you can apply stencils in full and how you can apply them in part, along with how once a stencil is applied, you can use the search and select tool and you can remove pieces that potentially you don't want. Okay. What I'd like to talk about now is how you can create your own custom stencils. And the thing is, a lot of people will come to us and they're like, you know what, I like some of the stencils y'all already have created. It would be nice if I could just make a copy of one of those to kind of tweak it and make it my own. Well, guess what? You can. Okay. In my opinion, the easiest way to create a stencil is to take one of the ones that we already have in the public library, make a copy of it, and just work off of that. That way you're not starting completely from scratch. Now, if you'd like to create a stencil completely from scratch, you can by clicking add household, going manual entry, marking this as a stencil. But if you're going to go that method, you're probably going to want to use our user guide resource. So if you want to do that, you can just click the chat bubble here on the bottom right. This is where you can come, click search for help, and you can type in the word custom stencil, just like so. And we're going to have a user guide right up here at the top that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to build your own custom stencils. There's also a way for you to take an existing household, like let's say an actual client, and you're like, it'd be cool if I could somehow make a stencil off of this household and then I could just change the names and things. You can do that as well. All of that can be done by coming out and checking out the support resource here. Okay, we have videos, we've got step-by-step instructions that'll walk you through how to go through these different pieces and things like that too. Okay, so I just want to point that out for the group. Let me show you how to make a copy. So the first thing you'll have to do is you actually have to go to an existing household to get to stencils. So just like pick someone, open up their map. On their map, you're going to then access stencils. So I may not want to apply any stencil here, but even to go to where I can make a copy of one, I have to come here first and I'm going to right click my mouse, click stencil, click apply. From here, I can come to the public library. Once you're in the public library, you're going to have the ability to look at the full list. Let's say that I like the Gen X stencil, but I'd like to just tweak it a little bit. There's a few things I want to add, or there's a few things that I want to remove. Or maybe I work with a lot of teachers and I like the educator stencil, but I want to fine tune this a little bit more. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. Okay. So you pick the stencil you want, and to the right, there's a plus mark. You're going to click it once. Okay. And you're going to click add. And then it's going to think for a few seconds and you're going to be like, wait, is it working? Yes, it's doing its job. It's making a carbon copy. Okay. It takes a second because there's a lot of placeholders. Okay. So then from there, you could go ahead, And I'll show you that once it makes a copy, you have to go somewhere else to adjust it, rename it, and kind of tweak it in the way that you want it to be used. And then you can go use it on households moving forward. Okay. So when you make a copy of a stencil, it'll basically load and then go away. And you're like, wait a second, where is it? What do I do? You just exit out of this, go back to the home page of Asset Map. Okay. Click on the logo at the top of the screen. When you're here, you can come to your household index list. And in your household index list, it'll take a couple seconds because it does take a couple minutes. Okay. You can keep refreshing your household index list every couple minutes, but it'll be up at the top, at the very, very top, because it's going to have a number in front of it because you made a copy of a numbered stencil that's in the public library. I'm going to be honest though, sometimes it can take a minute or two before it's going to load. Now you'll notice that it finally loaded for me, so I can see that it says number 4 Gen X multi-member stencil. It says copy. So this is now the copy version, but I'm the owner of it. So to modify my version of the stencil, I can just click into it, come right to the asset map, and I can decide, okay, these are the pieces that make up this stencil. What do I want to adjust? Okay. And maybe most of the Gen X's that I work with, most of the clients are working in the network space, right? Like in TV and television. So I could change the job title if I wanted to. I could change when things are going to start and stop. It's up to you. If you wanted to add anything to this, like maybe I want to add some other placeholders for other types of protection assets and things, I could just right click my mouse, click create. Maybe I'm going to come to insurance, for example. Maybe I want a placeholder for medical insurance. You do have to put something here. So we could call this medical insurance. We could put a question mark for the insurance carrier. Okay. For the benefit, we could just leave it blank or we could put $1. It's up to you. Okay, and then you could click create. Oh, you got to pick an insured member. So I'm going to mark primary. Okay, and I'm going to click create. And then look, it's going to add a placeholder here for medical insurance for the primary. Now, maybe I want to add the same one to the spouse's side. Okay, so look, you can click in it. By the way, if you ever want to clone an instrument, you can click this little clone button. If you click clone, in a second, it creates a carbon copy. See how it says copy now in the reference name? All you have to do is switch that now this will be for the spouse. Get rid of the word copy in this language. Okay. And you're going to click save and then look, it gets added there as well. Now, once I've taken the copy of a stencil and I've modified it in the way that I see fit, and again, I kept this example very light today, I always recommend renaming the stencil because this language gets confusing. So what I like to do is I like to come here to the household summary page. Next to the household name, I'll click edit. And I always include the word stencil in the name of one of my stencils. And for those of you that are confused, in order to create a stencil, okay, you have to add it as a household, but the household type is that it's a stencil. So for the household name, you should include the word stencil in it. So I might come in here and I might call this traditional fact finder general, okay? So if that's what I want to name it, that's fine. But I always use the word stencil at the end. That way I can find it really easily through the search bar if I want to. Once I've renamed it, I can go ahead and click Save Household. Once I've saved that, now I can go to any other actual prospect and or client's household and I can overlay this stencil. So look, let's say that I had someone come through my Discovery Fact Finder. We'll say that her name is Hannah Miller. Okay, I can open up her household and I can go right to her map. And I can see that I already applied a stencil. So let's say that I don't want this stencil anymore. I want the new one that I just made. Okay, so look, I'll click clear. So let's say that this is what her map looks like. Now I want to overlay that new stencil that I just made. How do I do that? You right click your mouse, you come to stencils, you click apply. You will not go to the public library because now you created your own custom stencil. It'll be in the My Stencils drop-down list. Again, you won't have as many as you see on mine because I created a lot, okay? But there's the one I created. It says Traditional Fact Finder General Stencil, okay? I can click on this here and I can click Apply Stencil and you're going to see in a matter of moments, those placeholders Now we're going to be overlaid onto this household map. See, there's the placeholders I just added for medical insurance. Everything else is listed here. And now we use this just like we would any normal stencil. Now, the cool thing about having custom stencils is, let's say 6 months from now, I want to update that stencil. You can. You just come to your search bar here, and all you have to do is type in the name of it. So usually what I'll do is I'll type in the word stencil. That's the easiest way, in my opinion. Just type in the word stencil. Any custom stencils that you've copied and or built will be in this list. You'll pick the one that you want to update. So there's the one I just did today. I can go back into it at any time and I can continue building and adjusting how I want the stencil to work moving forward. Okay. So hopefully that's valuable for the group. We've talked about a variety of different ways that you can use stencils. I hope that you can see that stencils really are going to streamline your data entry. I also think it's going to help you uncover additional assets to manage. It's also going to open doors of opportunity for potential planning opportunities later down the road. Now, as we start to wrap up today, the next thing I would like to do is I'd like to engage all of you with a very quick poll. If you'll take a moment to take this with me. I just want to know from the group, do you love Asset Map? And if you do, are you willing to leave us an honest review? And it's okay if you're like, listen, I love Asset Map, but I just don't have time to do that right now. You can mark that appropriately. I give you a couple different options there. But for those of you that said that you would be willing, what I am going to do is I'm going to provide you all with a quick link to where you can go ahead and provide us that quick review. So I'm going to go grab that link right now for all of you. And if you do have any interest in leaving us a review, I'll just ask that you please take a moment to fill out that hyperlink there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that now. And I'm going to go ahead and paste it into the chat. So all you have to do is click on that link. By the way, when you click on it, it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. And all you'll have to do is you can click continue to log in. If you don't have a login created, you can just do it off of your LinkedIn. Basically, it just verifies that you're not a robot. If you're not familiar with G2, it's an incredible platform where you can go to investigate and learn about additional technology that's out there and hear from real-time users that are using it. And the reason why they gate their reviews is because they just like to make sure that, nobody's using like AI robots and things like that to get fake reviews in there. So something to consider. Okay, thanks to those of you that filled out the poll. I will go ahead and take that into consideration moving forward. Now, as we start to wrap up today's call, the natural next step after today will be for you to hop in and start using stencils. If you feel like you'd like to schedule some time with someone from the team to maybe build out your own custom stencil, you're welcome to always chat in to the group and say, I'd like to schedule a meeting within the next week, and the team will send you their rotating calendar, okay? Always be on the lookout for next month's Accelerate Series webinar. For those of you that said you'd be willing to leave us an honest review, please take a moment to click on the link I posted in the chat, and we'd love to hear that for you, hear from you. And then lastly, if any of you are interested, we do offer a virtual boot camp once a quarter. Our first boot camp of 2025 is actually coming up next week. So boot camp will be taking place Tuesday through Thursday next week. I only have a couple seats left. If you have interest and you'd like to register and purchase a ticket, I'm posting the link right now into the chat if you'd like to learn more. If you are an elite level subscriber, don't forget that bootcamp comes included in your subscription. So if you are elite, you can reach out to our team and ask for that code. We will verify that you are an elite level subscriber though. Okay, so if you're not an elite level subscriber, please don't ask for the code because we will double check to make sure that you're a subscriber. Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about bootcamp, it's an incredible event. I've revamped it, so bootcamp's going to be following a different flow in 2025. Really excited. Adam, myself, and Sean Dodds. Both myself and Sean are senior members on our team. Sean is our senior onboarding advisor. Adam Holt is our CEO and founder. Really proud of the program that we put on. Many of you have come to boot camps over the last several years, but I think it continues to get better and better, and I'm really excited for our boot camp kicking off next week. Other than that, that's all I have for us today. The very last thing I'd like to ask is, would you like to just share with me what you thought of today's training? If you thought it to be valuable, I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to go ahead and post a little link in the chat. It's a really quick survey. I think it's 2 questions. I'd love to know. And then lastly, for those of you that might stick around for a second, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post one more poll on the screen. If there's anything that you're like, you know what, I'd like to learn more about X when it comes to AssetMap, you can go ahead and add that into the poll. And our team can always follow up with you on some resources and things. But especially for those of you that are new, if you're not leaning on the support team, I really suggest that you start, because at the end of the day, they're going to be here to support you. Other than that, that's all I have for us. So thank you all for your time. I hope to see you at the next one, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.